And so what America voted for was America first, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America first. And to say that USAID was simply...
You've said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act. None of that. You can say that you don't think it's right to feed starving children in Africa.
Sam Seder joins Piers Morgan on Piers Morgan Uncensored for a fiery debate with Jillian Michaels and conservative commentator Benny Johnson. You can tell right away this one's going to get intense. Sam Seder on Piers Morgan's show always brings sharp takes, and with Benny Johnson on the panel, the clash gets even more interesting. Let's break down what happened on Piers Morgan Uncensored and see who really came out on top.
Sam, let's talk for a moment about the other big thing that's going on, which is this whole Doge stuff with Elon Musk. You, I think, posted that the idea that Doge is in any way about efficiency is absolutely a joke. They're not doing an audit. They're destroying the apparatus of our government. What do you base that on?
Well, audits are done regularly of agencies by inspector generals. The first thing they did was to fire all those inspector generals and not replace them. A. B. Audits that lead to firings within a couple of days are obviously not being done. The notion that this is about efficiency when you're laying off thousands of IRS agents, when it is well known that every dollar spent at the IRS returns for the government $6 or $7. You're clearly not talking about efficiency here as measured in any other way other than allowing wealthy people to get away with cheating on their taxes. I mean, I could go on, but there's absolutely no evidence that there's a single audit going on. To the extent that they've saved any money, it has been largely dismissed as clerical errors on their part, and we still have no substantiation about it. So it's
hang on. That's not true. I mean, some of the stuff that came out about USAID, for example, some of the way that American taxpayers' money was being squandered on ridiculous projects.
Oh, wait a second.
And it wasn't insignificant sums of money.
Wait a second. You can determine that you can have an opinion that it's squandered. I can have an opinion that it's squandered, but it's been appropriated by the Congress. And in America, we have actually both statutory, constitutional, and court cases that say the President of the United States and the executive branch cannot decide unilaterally that they're not going to appropriate money that Congress has appropriated. I mean, the line item video has been found to be unconstitutional. We have the Impoundment Control Act from 1974. We have Train v. New York City from 1974, which is a Supreme Court case which enforces that. What they're doing is fundamentally illegal. I mean, you may think that some of the spending is not worthy. I may think it's not worthy, but that's just not the way our government works.
Okay. Jillian, you were shaking your head there.
Because it doesn't seem that the government is working. As a layman, when the USAID is exposed in the fashion that it has been, and all of a sudden we have this transparency that we've never had in my lifetime.
None of this stuff was hidden at all. None of this stuff was hidden at all. It's just that
so you're telling me that the average American knew that we were funding friggin' operas for trans people in
if the average American was interested in what USAID was supporting, they could have just gone to the website.
Do you really believe that?
Yes,
do you really believe that people knew this and this was common knowledge? And there's no question that some of this was a slush fund for the CIA.
Well, actually, you know what? The truth is, you can both be right here.
Oh,
right?
Yes.
Sam is right that it was there to be found, and Jillian's right that absolutely nobody told the American people about the specifics. So actually, you can both be right.
What can happen in our process of government?
No, I understand. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying it wasn't there. I'm not saying it wasn't there to be found. But Benny, it was only when Elon Musk and his young team of guys with their sabers got into it, they found this stuff, right, and told people.
They didn't find it. They just they publicized it.
Well, exactly.
And
that's how the but Sam, that's how the American
have authority.
Sam, that's how the American people found out about it.
Authority to cut it.
Yes.
So Congress, Republicans control every house of Congress. They control the presidency. They could pass a bill tomorrow saying, we don't want to fund these things. But what's happening when they cut USAID is you've got literally 400,000 meals for children who are technically wasting away. It's in Africa. Maybe my guests don't care about that. But the fact is that they're sitting in warehouses in Rhode Island and in Georgia right now, food that is pre-digested practically because these kids are starving, and it's sitting in warehouses. It's going bad, and they have no way to ship it.
Okay.
Because USAID has been shut down.
All right, Benny.
I'm sorry.
Benny?
That's not constitutional or legal.
Okay, Benny.
It's incredible. So I've heard the Constitution thrown around a lot here. All right, let's talk about Article 2 of the Constitution. The executive branch has a clause called the vesting clause. The vesting clause makes one single man that is elected by the whole American people the only position in the federal government that has the entire whole of the country elect him is the President of the United States, who is vested with the power to oversee the executive. And that includes congressional spending. That includes the functionaries of the government, including the commander-in-chief. There are appointed judges. There are elected at state and local levels, members of Congress, but only the president is elected by the whole American people. Now, I have a giant map in my studio. I don't know if your production team can pop me. There it is. This is what America decided in 2024 in a landslide, and with the popular vote, the whole
Wasn't a landslide.
whole of the American people decided to vest a single man, Donald Trump, to hunt down waste, fraud, and abuse. Because while maybe there are some type of programs that you might view as just, what I view as just is feeding the American people. What I view as just is filling the potholes, educating, health care.
So, I want to pause here for a second because this is something that always stands out to me with certain right-wing commentators like Benny Johnson. They keep saying America first, but if you really look closer, it's not about helping people here at home, it's about protecting tax cuts for the wealthy. They're not fighting to fund programs that help families, healthcare, or fight hunger. They just want to reduce spending unless it benefits them directly. Imagine if we actually took a fraction of the defense budget and used it to make sure no one goes hungry, or that people don't lose everything when they get sick. Call it whatever you want: Medicare for all, Trump care, or just common sense, but the goal is simple. Everyone deserves basic security in healthcare. Yet, every time this idea comes up, commentators like Benny Johnson label it socialism or communism and shut it down. And Sam Seder calls this out perfectly on Piers Morgan Uncensored. He highlights how this America First argument often falls apart when it comes to real support for working people. These are the same folks who talk about cutting Medicaid or food assistance while amplifying unverified stories online. It's the same pattern we've seen again and again.
Capacity to serve Americans.
To cut food stamps.
And so what America voted for was America First, and transgender operas in Chile isn't exactly America First. And to say that USAID was simply...
You've said a lot of words, but you've said nothing. You haven't addressed the Constitution, the Supreme Court cases, the Impoundment Control Act. None of that. You can say that you don't think it's right to feed starving children in Africa. That's your prerogative.
Can we address the feed starving children?
Donald Trump. I can't believe you're going with the starving children. You're going with the starving children.
No, it does. I mean, it does other things that you don't like.
All right, let me.
But it also does this.
Allow the lady in the room to speak,
was there
please.
more USAID money spent?
Chat, let Gillian have her say.
On feeding starving children or a coup in Ukraine in 2014.
Guys, let Gillian speak for a moment. Gillian.
Big fan of
the
Gillian,
feeding starving children thing is such a frickin' red herring. So first of all, the vast majority of this USAID bloat and corruption does not go to that. Second of all, we have children starving here in America. But third of all, and what you don't know and what you have not looked into, okay, is that read a book. It's called Save 3 Lives, and it's by the Rodale family. And it has to do with the fact that our big ag companies went into the developed world to addict their soil to our GMO crops. It's a money laundering game. They can grow their crops in their soil far more efficiently and did for thousands of years before ConAgra and Cargill and Monsanto and ADM went in. You just don't know that because you haven't done your homework. So you're like, oh, there's children starving in Africa. When really, it's about billions of dollars going to big ag. That's what that's really about. And I've seen it firsthand when I went to South Sudan and stayed at a refugee camp. So don't play your starving children card. I can't.
Well, listen, it's not my card. It's just simply the reality. And the fascinating thing about
it is your card, though. Your game is like nobody's empathetic because children are starving.
We are talking about
what that's really about.
USAID is a percentage point, like literally less than 1% of the U.S. budget. But because there is this attitude amongst the, frankly, it's not just USAID. I don't like them cutting the IRS. I don't like them cutting the EPA. I don't like them cutting Labor Department. I don't like them cutting the National Labor Relations Board. I don't like them cutting the FDA.
Do you like the level of do you like the level of debt your country's in?
I don't think it's as much of a problem as you do. But we know the debt shot off like a rocket with the Bush tax cuts and then with the Trump tax cuts, and they want to extend those. And so if we want to deal with the debt, and if that's a genuine concern, we can go back to the time in this country where we had the greatest economic expansion during the 50s and the 60s, when we had a top tax marginal rate of 90% of every dollar that would be earned over $470,000. Today, it would be $3 million. And if these guys are very concerned about the debt and deficit, we have a way of raising that money. We can go back to the greatest economic time of this country. So if that's genuinely their concern, we have that power to do it. I mean, we're not spending as a function of GDP. We're not spending significantly more per capita than we were in those years. The problem is that we don't have the revenue. There's been huge tax cuts for millionaires and billionaires and presided over by two Republican administrations over the past 20 years.
I've got to pause here for a second because honestly, watching Benny Johnson and Jillian Michaels together on Piers Morgan Uncensored is just too much sometimes. Why is it that so many of these right-wing commentators always have that same smug grin during serious conversations? It's like they're performing instead of debating. But Sam Seder really nails it here. He brings up a key point that most people forget. Back in the 1950s and 60s, when the U.S. had a top tax rate of around 90%, the country built the strongest middle class in history. Big corporations were paying a fair share too, covering nearly a third of all taxes back then, compared to barely 10% today. When people talk about the rich and corporations paying their fair share, that's exactly what Sam Seder is referring to. Over time, the ultra-wealthy and big companies have paid less, and that burden has quietly shifted to everyone else. Sam's appearance on Piers Morgan Uncensored really highlights that reality, while commentators like Benny Johnson just keep repeating talking points that don't reflect how the system actually works. Let me know what you think about Sam Seder's debate with Benny Johnson and Jillian Michaels on Piers Morgan Uncensored. Do you agree with Sam's take? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if you like these breakdowns, hit the like button and subscribe for more Piers Morgan panel discussions and reactions.